I remember when I first stepped into the airport, I felt very happy. I feel like I was in another world. In that moment, I felt very strong and I felt that I was ready to start my new life.
Hola a todas y todos, ¿qué más?
Serdecznie witamy.
Ciao, come stai?
Hallo, Anisaroma Neidogo.
Assalamu alaikum.
Herzlich willkommen zum Podcast herIDEA. Sie engagiert divers kulturell.
Wir stellen euch jede Woche Powerfrauen vor.
Sie selbst oder ihre Eltern sind aus der ganzen Welt nach Deutschland eingewandert.
Sie setzen sich ein für mehr Sichtbarkeit, Teilhabe und Chancengerechtigkeit.
Valentina is 21 years old and studies international business management at Furtwangen University at the Villingen-Schwenningen Campus in the second semester. In 2021, Valentina came from Argentina to Germany together with her sister and her mother. Her father is still in Argentina and will also come to Germany if the family succeeds in the adjustment process.
My family always had the idea to come to Europe, right? My grandparents were Italians who immigrated to Argentina. So we always had this connection with Italians and with the Europe community. We wanted to look for new opportunities and we chose Germany because of the job opportunities, because we think that the educational system is also so important, so effective. Also the health insurance that you have here, security, provision that the country has. And also, yes, it's beautiful, the rainforest and the nature and the quality of life.
By rainforest, Valentina means the beautiful Black Forest in southwestern Germany. Before Valentina came to Germany, she had expectations of what her life there might look like. She informed herself in advance about the German culture and had mixed feelings about taking this step and starting her new life in Germany.
When you are in Argentina, you only know about stereotypes. What you see in YouTube, for example, about Germany, you start looking for things like how are German people, their culture, and yes, I felt strange and I felt it was so different from us. I think that I was scared. I really thought that it was impossible for me to adapt myself to this culture. But at the same time, I think that I thought that it was going to be an important step in my life and that the German culture is so special and Germans tend to be people that distant, maybe more reserved. I knew that making friendship, new friends was going to be hard because to have a friend here can take longer time. This is different from Argentina, where you can make friends in an easy way. People are more friendly from the beginning, so you don't need this time. And I also maybe expected to learn more things, to learn this new culture, to learn, for example, punctuality. That is a thing so different from Argentina. When I was in Argentina, I remember myself sitting on a desk that I have and thinking, spending all the time questioning my decision, questioning myself and asking myself if it was the right decision, because I knew that my life was going to change. And I knew that it was the most, I don't know if the most, but I knew that it was going to be a difficult step.
After a short time, more and more differences appeared in Valentina's new everyday life, which she did not know from her life in Argentina. Some things surprised her very positively, and others she had to get used to and adapt to.
I think that the most shocking part is the language. You're happy when you want to communicate with someone, say something, you realize that you can't. And this is the moment when you feel strange and when you feel you are different from others, when you're in a culture. Or when you are in the street surrounded by people and you can't understand them, you feel strange, like disconnected from the society. You have to adapt to another way of doing things. Maybe, for example, this review that you do of the things, like you organize your work, you organize every step of everything, and sometimes I have to adapt myself to those things because I am used to do things in a completely different way. The key thing is the way of how people behave. Like, I feel sometimes that Germans are quite reserved, cold, or maybe shy, that they have autonomy, they are independent. This is something that I saw. For example, one thing that caught my attention was one day in a train, I saw a little boy, I don't know, 5 years maybe or 6, and he was completely alone going to school, and he seemed to be very independent. And this is something that, yes, it was new for me, because in Argentina we usually are with our parents every time because of insecurity and those things. And here I see that people are more independent. For example, my friends, when they try to explain their ideas, they do it in a totally different way than me. They are more secure, they are more autonomous. So yes, this is a difference that I see about people. But I think this is because of the educational system and the society. Another so important thing is the punctuality. Here in Germany, people is so punctual. In Argentina, we are not so punctual. And yes, this is something I had to adapt, for example, force me to adapt because it's something important for you. One thing very different is the snow, the weather, right? It's the first time for me that I had a winter with snow. It was so strange. And the fact that at 4 p.m. there's no more sun in the afternoon.
But the differences of the new culture in the new life also made Valentina think. When you are almost alone in a foreign country, you quickly start to miss things which were taken for granted before.
Yes, one difference that I see and I really miss of my country is having my family with me and spend all the weekend together as I did in Argentina. In Argentina, usually families come together on the weekend and make dishes together, have all the day together, and they are so close. And maybe in Germany I see that people are more reserved, more alone, and they only come together for different celebrations or something.
But in contrast to the sad thoughts, without her whole family, Valentina also experienced many positive events that brought her courage and joy again.
I had a lot of positive experience, but I think that the most important for me was feeling free. I don't remember second or third day in Germany. I remember I went for a walk in a little rainforest, and I couldn't believe my eyes because I was alone in a rainforest. And for you, maybe it's the usual thing, but for me, it's so strange. In Argentina, we can't be alone in the street because of insecurity, robots. You can't have your mobile in your hand with the street. Yes, you can walk at night, for example, because it's so peligroso, dangerous. And yes, this was a thing that I can't believe my eyes until now, because I can walk in the street with my mobile phone, listening to music. This was the thing that shocked me. But I feel very happy because I feel free. It was la experiencia más increíble de mi vida, the most impressive experience in my life, because I learned about how is living in a country with security, how is living in a country where the educational system is from the state and is very efficient. And yes, I learned German a little bit. That is something new. I knew a lot of new people from different cultures, and these things are so important because you learn a lot about the culture.
In the process of getting to know a new culture, the so-called culture shock often occurs. When a person moves from a familiar environment to a completely foreign culture, it often leads to feelings of fear, loneliness, and uncertainty. The culture shock has two phases. On the one hand, the new country, the new culture. For the foreigner, this means many new things at once. On the other hand, the home country, the culture left behind. Culture shock is divided into 4 phases. In the first phase, the so-called honeymoon phase, Everything is new and fascinating. Everything is exciting and interesting. On the one hand, you focus on the similarities between the home country and the host country. But you are also aware of the differences between the old and the new culture, but you see them as positive and beautiful.
I remember when I first stepped into the airport, yes, I felt very happy. I feel like I was in another world. In that moment, I felt very strong, and I felt that I was ready to start my new life. And I remember that the first step was this feeling of happiness, and you are ready to face any adversity. But then after some weeks and after I started university, when you start to interact with people, you start feeling frustration and feeling that you're not able to connect with people, right? You spend some days in your honeymoon because you don't have to interact so much with people, but then when you start your work or when you start your school, your university, and you start to interact with people, you start doing things, for example, going to the bank, going to the supermarket. In this part is where the honeymoon maybe finishes and you start realizing, you start seeing the reality.
The second phase is to suddenly get uncomfortable with the new country, the people and their way of life. It can also be that people start to behave as they did in their old culture. An important step in this phase is also to idealize the old life. Everything you have now, the food, the working hours, the language, etc., is worse than in your country of origin. Feelings of loneliness and insecurity are also part of this phase.
Frustration, feeling depression, feeling alone. The first time I went to the supermarket, I felt very disappointed because I wanted to buy some things and I didn't understand even how to buy them, like how to explain myself. I didn't know whom I could ask. Then going to the bank, for example, we had to create an account and we couldn't, and this is so frustrating.
It was not only difficult for Valentina to do the daily shopping, but also to find an apartment with her mother and her sister.
And another thing is that we were looking for an apartment for my mom and my sister. We are living in Villingen and we wanted to, go to an apartment. And no one wanted to alquilarnos.
No one wanted to rent them an apartment.
Because we are Argentinians, and some people think that Argentinians are desordenados, not organized, and we felt this kind of thing. The part where you feel that you are strange and you feel depressed.
Valentina also experienced the start at university difficult at first.
Making new friends for me was so difficult. In my first semester, I was so alone. And I spent all day alone because I didn't know anyone. It was also difficult for me to speak in English. I know how to speak in English, but sometimes it's still difficult to express my ideas because it's not my mother tongue, right? But yes, after some weeks, I could speak with people. I made some new friends, but it's still difficult for me to connect with people.
Acceptance begins in the orientation phase. Understanding of people's culture and actions appears. They are also respected regardless of whether you think they are right or wrong. One feels better in the new environment and has a positive and good attitude for the time ahead. It may happen that phases 2, frustration phase, and 3, orientation phase, are repeated several times.
Today it's becoming better, se está poniendo mejor, más fácil. Because now I know a little bit German and I can explain myself a little bit with people. Now I understood that this friendship needs more time, that I need to be patient. It's not that people don't like me. This is what I think that thought first. Why people don't like me, why people don't talk to me. Now I understand a little bit better. Now I understand the university, the educational system, how is the subjects. Yes, so thanks.
In the fourth and final phase, you are finally able to cope with both cultures. The acceptance of the new culture is complete. You begin to feel at home in your new life and no longer feel lonely and abandoned. Since Valentina has only been in Germany since 2021, she has not yet reached this final stage. It is also possible that she will never reach it.
I think that I am between stage 2 and stage 3. I mean, on the one hand, I have days where I get up very happy, and I'm happy when I overcome some challenges. For example, communicating with someone in German with some words, or going to the bank now and knowing how to say something or help with something. But on the other hand, I have days where I really can't get out of bed because I feel depressed. I feel frustrated for something related to university, for something related with people too, because I had, some problems, some choques culturales. So yes, some days I feel sickness, I really miss my family, the love of my family, I miss my dog, my bedroom, everything. So yes, I think that I have some beautiful days and some days where, I'm very sad. But now, after more and more time, as I said, we need time to adapt, time and patience. Things are more easy now. Now I can speak a little bit more. Now I have friends also. I know more or less how the system here functions.
Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you automatically compare the new culture with your home culture.
I think that you will compare because I think it's a natural thing, because both cultures are so different. I think it's okay to compare and to see a difference, but you don't have to creer, o sea, no tenés que creer que tu cultura es mejor, that your culture is the best. All culture has these good parts and bad parts. So yes, everything has its advantages and disadvantages, always.
Valentina also gives many more tips on how to deal best with culture shock.
When you emigrate, the first part is always difficult because you are in a new place, in a new culture. You don't know so much people or any people sometimes. First, I know that it can be very, you feel anxiety and ansioso. Or sometimes you can't understand why people behave in a certain way. But I think that you need time. You need to observe people around you, observe their culture, and then try to adapt. But don't rush, not run. It's an adaptation process and it takes time. So yes, be patient and observe.
Relationships to other people has helped her a lot personally in coping with culture shock.
We have some friends that now are like our family because they help us to come to Germany. They are a family who lives in Villingen, and they help us a lot with this adaptation process because they speak German, so they could help us in some stuff and those things. But for me, mostly the university was the place where I met people and where I start with this step of socializar with others. I knew that changing your culture is like escaping of your comfort zone and try to adapt to a new culture. I knew that it was going to be difficult, yes, absolutely. But yes, I tried to make new friends, to connect with people from the first time, even when sometimes I feel that I'm not able or I can't.
In Deutschland leben knapp 10 Millionen Frauen mit internationaler Geschichte. Insgesamt gibt es jedoch nur sehr wenige öffentliche Berichte zur weiblichen Migration.
Häufig liegt das daran, dass Migrantinnen aufgrund ihres Geschlechts und ihrer Einwanderungsgeschichte ausgeblendet werden. Genau das wollen wir ändern.
herIDEA entsteht im Rahmen des Projektes IDEA. Das steht für Inklusives Digitales Erinnerungsarchiv.
IDEA ist ein Kooperationsprojekt der Hochschule Furtwangen, der Katholischen Hochschule Freiburg und der Feministischen Geschichtswerkstatt Freiburg e.V. Das Projekt wird bis 2022 vom Bundesministerium für Bildung und Forschung gefördert.
Folge uns gerne auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen wie Instagram und Facebook @heridea.de und abonniere unseren Newsletter über unsere Homepage www.heridea.de, um keine Neuigkeiten mehr zu verpassen.